Welcome to this edition of the Connected Cities Tour. Look at how cities and counties are getting to smart. Today, we're going to visit with Branham, Chief Technology Officer at Peachtree Corners. We're going to introduce him in a minute or two. But first, I want to talk to the Omnia program and our partner, Graybar. Omnia is a cooperative purchasing agreement that any government, university, town, basically any nonprofit can use to purchase technology off of a fixed schedule with very good pricing that's been pre-competed at a federal level. So it does not have to go to RFP, and it's excellent for purchasing a lot of your equipment for electric data and other automation type projects. The email address, or I'm sorry, the website address is graybar.com/Omnia Partners. So check it out. But that said, let's get right to introducing Brandon. Brandon, would you say hello?
Thank you, Peter, for having me. Brandon Branham, as Peter mentioned, Assistant State Manager and Chief Technology Officer for City of Peachtree Corners.
And we visited with you a couple of years back at your innovation lab, and we're just extremely impressed with the work that you're doing. First of all, we had a quick chat, and I think you've used Omnia in Peachtree Corners.
We've used it for our datacom purchases, so it is a great resource.
Great, and I know you've developed the innovation lab there in Peachtree, and you partner with T-Mobile, and gosh, you have all sorts of partners now in that office complex. And what I'd like to do is just turn it over to you to describe what you're doing, because you are, I think, what Peachtree Corners has done is a role model for all sort of mid-sized growing cities around the world, how you've integrated your technology and your quality of life aspects and to drive business and growth. So, so the floor is yours, sir.
I appreciate that, Peter, and it's a compliment coming from you, so really appreciate that. And it is a journey that we are all on together, getting to share and learn from one another. We got friends all across the U.S. that are doing amazing things, and we get to be a part of the journey with them. So, as you mentioned, what most people don't know is Peachtree Corners is a relatively new city, so just incorporated in 2012. So celebrating our 13th birthday here in July. But what was unique was really the city itself was developed in the late 60s, early 70s, and actually hosted Georgia's first technology office park. So we had a Georgia Tech grad who turned developer, got tired of seeing the brain drain leave Georgia. So came way out here back in the 60s and started building office buildings to recruit technology-focused companies. And the fun fact was the modem was invented in Peachtree Corners, and color printer was here as well, and Scientific Atlanta, which a lot of people knew, which was purchased by Cisco, all founded right here in the city in this office park. You know, fast forward a few decades, the city stood up, got operational. We're just over 45,000 residents, but also 45,000 jobs. So we are a regional job hub for Metro Atlanta, and wanted to find a way to really lean in and embrace that growth, because we are one of few cities that are a zero millage rate. So we don't charge a city property tax. So the business climate is very, very important for us and how we provide services to our residents. And so wanted to use that history of innovation, as well as, you know, what does public entities and cities and counties and states have that the private sector doesn't have? And that's public infrastructure, right? Roadways, sidewalks, lighting infrastructure. There in your background, that's our downtown, all of those amenities that cities have. Why don't we open those up to industry to come and bring these emerging technologies to the public space, with the idea of, you know, leaning forward with innovation and looking at it from an economic development perspective. How does innovation drive job growth, right? We all know Silicon Valley, the success that it's had because of innovation. Why couldn't we do that in a mid-sized city? So in 2019, opened Curiosity Lab, where we opened over 500 acres of public infrastructure free of charge for companies to come and deploy these emerging technologies in the public space, work alongside us as the city, on how do you permit these things? What are their true impact to residents and businesses? Just because we have a great IoT device doesn't mean it will solve the problem. So let's put it to test and get it out there and see the impact that it has. So through that journey, we actually just onboarded our 170th company that has used Curiosity Lab as a testing demonstration deployment site. And we've seen a lot of technology come through, right? Some really great, made big impacts. Some didn't make it at all. But that's the story of innovation, right? And how do we serve as that platform to do that? And then how do we, now that we've got this front row seat to technology, start to implement that across the city so that our services to our residents match what we're trying to create with Curiosity Lab. So through those years, thinking about economic development and really creating that identity of a place, of a government that says yes, and a government that is open to innovation. We've created 2,700 new jobs, $1.2 billion worth of investment into the city by the private sector, and all of them going on record saying that one of the reasons they chose Peachtree Corners was because of the private-public partnerships we were building through Curiosity Lab. And you mentioned that, we knew we couldn't go at this alone because there's infrastructure that we as cities don't control, right? Fiber systems, telecom systems, and then the subject matter expertise of the private sector to help us along that journey was really important. So brought on a few of those partners, T-Mobile, Bosch, Cisco, Dell, and then your Georgia Techs, your Kennesaw States, your university, your research side, and created that place where we could all come together to deploy. So it's been a very exciting last 5 years, just celebrated our 5th anniversary. We just launched actually Georgia's very first commercially available rider-only autonomous vehicle. So think of a Waymo, but here in the suburbs with May
So
Mobility.
you don't have to have a driver in it anymore?
There's no driver. So it's just you in the car.
That's outstanding.
It's a great one. We did with the startup, we ran an underground robotic hyperlogistics delivery system. So a company out of Austin called Peachtree. They put 18-inch pipe in our right of way for about a mile and are testing underground logistics delivery. So really just thinking outside the box of what the future of innovation and smart cities looks like.
Mm-hmm. It's, I know when we visited, a couple of the themes there were automated vehicles and 5G innovation. Do you want to talk a little bit about let's start with 5G since we're connected cities is our theme. Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, we've been fortunate through our partnership with T-Mobile. We actually do have access to all 3 bands of the network here. So companies, we can really test all sorts of applications on the network. Everything from, we put a sensor 4 feet underground into the fire hydrant, and it sits there and listens for water pressure and changes of water pressure, right? So as we think of costly repair systems for water line breaks and the downtime that affects on our residents, can you do early detection through that? Or, we've seen people steal water off of fire hydrants because that's part of cleaning off a construction site or doing something. So you get those real-time alerts all the way to now we're creating these unique environments across the city where it's kind of challenging to get fiber to, but you still need your analytics from a video perspective and camera and LiDAR powering those over the network to do things like loitering detection in areas to traffic management. We launched a project with Seond on bringing LiDAR to one of our busiest intersections, actually right behind you in that photo. Got an intersection that carries 60,000 cars a day. Highest accident intersection in the city. So very complicated, fast. Speed limit's 45, but most people average speed's 58. So you think of an accident in that intersection is challenging, and then you add us as people, right? As we're crossing that intersection, the vulnerable road user. It's a 6-lane roadway. So what happens when you get someone in a wheelchair or you get someone pushing a stroller and they can't clear that intersection. Well, they're able to detect the speed of the pedestrian in the crosswalk and do things like tell the traffic controller not to change the phasing to give them time to clear that intersection. And then we approved a 300 plus multifamily unit apartment right there at this intersection. And we started to see that we were getting mid-block crossing, fancy way for saying
Yeah.
jaywalking.
Hmm.
They were just crossing, even though the crosswalk at the intersection was 30 feet away. They didn't take that extra time to walk to the crosswalk. They just shot across the road. So obviously not safe. We're adding another, 400, 500 people to this area. How do we as the city start to plan around the safety of them, knowing we're probably going to see an increase in that, not a decrease? So being able to have the network to power that was hugely helpful, because getting fiber to that location would have been very expensive. And then in there also, yeah, I'm loving your background because it's helping me with my story here. We have a splash pad right there next to that stage, and the challenge that cities all face in these splash pads you're not supposed to wear diapers into the splash pad. You're supposed to have like a swim diaper, not a regular diaper, because they break down. They actually clog the lines in the water, and the motors have to start working extra hard. So what happens when motors work harder than they're supposed to? They burn out. So now you've got a maintenance replacement cost. You've got a fountain that's down when it's 98 degrees outside. So none of the residents are happy. So through a new project, we've got an IoT sensor that's sitting on the network that measures that vibration and velocity of the motor. So start to tell you, hey, am I working harder than my average time? Go ahead and shut it down before you have to end up replacing that motor. So saving efficiency and cost in those areas. And then really looking forward to how we start to use the 5G network on a edge application. So how do we start to take in, 190 video streams at the edge on the network and process some analytics behind that? Because what we tend to forget in the video space is a lot of times you don't really need the video. You just need the analytics for that. So when we have a concert out there and we get 3,000 people on site one day, I don't need to see all the bodies. I just need to know where they're moving, how they're going. You can do that on the network through some edge processing. So we're going to be kicking that off here pretty soon. So excited about that.
And that's the smart. You see, that's where the technology gives you the information. You don't need all the initial stuff, but it's that output.
Yep.
Let me ask you about working with your different departments, public safety, transportation, that sort of thing. How do you develop this innovation in a way that solves their practical issues, meets budget, and it doesn't take, 10 years or that sort of thing? Because you've got an innovation curve. So as you're planning, if it takes too long, something new is out there, right? So, and I've seen them, people keep chasing the new thing. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been so successful at getting everybody aligned and then practically deploying these technologies while pushing the envelope a bit?
No, great question. And budgets are never a problem. You can put that one to the side. All of us cities have tons of money to play around with. But no, all joking aside, the evolution of, and we're seeing it more and more, we can't have siloed departments where, public works or community development's only coming to IT when there's a problem, or, hey, I already purchased this software, help me integrate it. So the changing in the dynamic and having those departments sitting there at the front row with you while you're evaluating these different scenarios. And Curiosity Lab's given us a unique perspective on that, because our public works director, our community development director, our GIS manager are all able to sit with these startups and these companies and be like, well, it does this, but could it do this? Or, you're capturing that asset in the right of way. How do I know it's changed? And how do I integrate that into our GIS layer base so that our stormwater infrastructure team knows that there's been a change in an environment, and it can automatically generate a workflow ticket? you can't get to that step unless you're all sitting there in the room together. And so part of our process for any company that we bring in through the innovation, program actually has to go through each of those departments. And so they're all getting to look and take a look and see what they're submitting from a technology standpoint. Some of them are going to apply to each department, but they're at least getting an eye on seeing what's coming through, what's the opportunity, and they have that opportunity to dig in and ask the question. So that's changed, kind of giving everyone that forward thinking, like I am a part of the process versus, hey, this is already done. Now you have to implement, because that's been the traditional way I think that we've seen, and we're seeing that change for a lot of places. But then it's also, right, there's a reason I think our city manager gave me the assistant city manager hat with the CTO hat, which you don't commonly see in local government, is because that we all have a top-down, organizational flow, and having that at the top helps with those conversations when you're in those with a department head. It's in a more open conversation when you see it structured that way. But and then they get to have as much fun as I do sometimes with Curiosity Lab. So they're exposed to new exciting projects that really start to rethink how they look at their traditional day-to-day. And the transportation space has been a fun one, especially with underground pipe delivery. Our public works director was like, what are you bringing over here? Are we really talking about this? But now that it's been deployed and operational, he's like, well, maybe we could look at something else. And it starts to stir that curiosity that we like to have.
And talk some more about the innovation lab. First of all, you're growing, right? It's not just one building. I remember I was there. You were sort of going through your first renovation. You go to the next stage, and I remember riding. It was Beep. You still, right on the automated shuttle. But you touched on, not only have you got this culture of innovation, but you have this innovation lab, which has some real innovative companies in there. Touch on what's in the lab, and then how you're expanding it, and well, just touch on what's in there, and then how you're expanding it, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, it is a unique structure the city set up, because we do run, a startup incubator program within our innovation center. So really looking at those early stage companies who are, a pre-seed funding round, not quite a Series A. So you're getting early exposure to help and mentor and give them education and resources to help them scale, which feeds the economic development side of our journey. But then it's created this unique environment with the corporate innovation space. So now we've got the T-Mobile in the building, we've got the UPS in the building, you've got these other corporate partners who are here because they want to see what the startups are doing, but they also want to see what the other corporate innovation arms are doing and how do they work together. So you've got a makeup of both that startup space, and we have branched out. So we have 54 startups in our program right now. 85% of those are actually hardware-based companies, which is pretty uncommon in this space. But we think due to the public infrastructure, we've got a design lab that changes the dynamics and the support that they get. And we've got companies in the construction and innovation space. We have a startup that built a robotic system that ties rebar. So you think of large concrete projects. We've got a startup that's in the automated warehousing space. So they're laying out, centimeter, millimeter accuracy of telling robots where to go using a robot. So we do have robots telling robots what to do now, all the way to some health tech startups and that are working on, aging population technology. We all want to stay and live in our homes longer. What's that technology that's going to help us do that? All the way up to fully deployed assets. So in our downtown, we just deployed an upgraded lighting system. So it's an LED light, it's a Wi-Fi access point, it's a analytic IoT device, and it's getting into, we've got a whole playground area there, and it individualizes each piece of play equipment, tells us the usage on that play equipment. So now we know from a maintenance schedule, okay, we're seeing this area is getting used 30, 40% more than this other area. make sure that's on the maintenance schedule as we look out. We've got a AI-based crosswalk system that we just launched. So think of a rapid flashing beacon that's out in the middle of a road. This one connects a roadway that connects to our middle school. And cities put these investments out, $20,000, $30,000, where you push the button, the lights come on. Most people don't push the button. They look, and then they cross the street. And so we put a system with a company called Convas that will detect when that pedestrian's in the crosswalk, automatically turn the light on. And then if a car is approaching, it gives them an audible alert that a vehicle is approaching. So it gives them awareness, because we all know we're all looking down at our phone most of the time when we're out. So it helps bring that extra safety. So you've got, full spectrum of products that are still in development, all the way to deployed project products that are out there. So we've filled our building currently 25,000 square feet. So we just bought a building next door. We're expanding another 25,000 square feet, open up some new verticals, bring on some more innovation space for them. And then on the 17th, we'll actually break ground on what we're calling Curiosity Corner. And it's about 3 buildings over, and it's going to be focused on a multimodal site. So giving a community gathering space within the office park. So covered seating, public Wi-Fi. We'll program it with food trucks and lunch hours, but also have a handoff from big transit to last mile connectivity, whether there's an autonomous vehicle or an e-bike, and then a focus on bringing in sustainable charging. So as EV charging grows, as data centers grow, the demand on the grid is only increasing. Can we start to offset that with some unique applications in the charging space? So, and then we continue just to grow our infrastructure, our testing infrastructure that's across the city. So pretty soon the entire 17 square miles will be the entire playground at this rate.
So you've got all these players, you've got the pieces in place. I want to zero in on one, and it's T-Mobile, because again, my love of 5G and everything network. Is first of all, I'm going to shout somebody out. Is Tiana McNeil still there?
She is.
See, you guys are sustaining the right people, and they stay in the place. That's wonderful. What do they see? What do they get out of being in that lab? Because I've known Tiana for years, and she's very bright, and T-Mobile's could be anywhere, right? Why do they invest in, and why is Tiana so excited about her job? Because I know she loves her job.
She still does, so I'm doing something right. But it is, no, it's great, because we actually were designated as an executive briefing center for T-Mobile about 1.5 years ago, which they've got 5 of those across the US. We're the only one that's unique, and partly why T-Mobile continues to stay with us, because there's not another facility where you really see the private and public industry come together in the way that we do. Having those open conversations of, hey, this product's not really working, and having those real honest conversations, because you're able to really validate that in a public setting, all the way to, we're feeding a funnel, because they're the network, right? They're the ones who have to light these things up, but they're not the solution maker. So how do we continue to feed solutions into the system? How are they exposed to early technologies that are coming through the pipeline? And then, from a customer perspective, when they're selling into government, what better than to have someone that's in government to be able to sit there and say, yeah, we did this, we tried this worked, this didn't, because we're in that collaboration together. So you get a unique aspect of them being able to test new applications in a city that works hand in hand with them, versus, hey, I got to try and get a permit through. Will you try and do this for me? Or we're like, yes, let's figure it out together, because in the end, hopefully the goal, right, is to improve the day-to-day lives of all of our residents and constituents. And we can do some of that through technology. We can do some of that through processes. But them being exposed to early startups, to other industry partners that we bring in, as through some of our other, larger partners, and then just the ability for them to showcase the breadth of the network across multiple devices. I think is really why they continue to invest. And I think this will be here for many years to come.
Well, what excites you about what you see in the park? And you can't say AI because that's too big, right? But if you can, but what in that you see going on do you think has, A, most practical applications for a city, and B, just gets you excited because you think
Yeah.
it's amazing or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's that is a hard question to ask because I could totally pick five and I will not use AI. That is too
Hey,
broad.
if you want to talk about all five,
Yeah.
give me each a minute or two, and that's fine with me.
Um, Definitely the focus on the technology from a VRU, a vulnerable road user. So the advancements that we're seeing with traditional video analytics to be able to better protect those that are not inside of a vehicle, because for so long transportation technology has been about let's improve the flow of traffic, right? Let's make the
Hmm.
intersection move. Let's build our roadways to move people, but and then us as residents were in our interaction with the infrastructure was sometimes overlooked. And so that dynamic and the use of technology from camera systems to connected vehicle application to LiDAR to really start to change the infrastructure to benefit the vulnerable road user. So super excited about that. Working with a company called Spoke, who built a device that can go on a bicycle and is
Hmm.
now a connected bicycle. So you're communicating with the cars that I'm here, because how many times has a bicycle popped out of the side of the road on you and you're like, whoa, now you can start to get early detection there. The advancements in autonomous vehicles, obviously, we've been, leaning into that pretty heavily since our opening in 2019. And we're really seeing the evolution of that technology, come to life over these years. And I think that is on an even greater scale over the next 3 years that we'll see that. And then, yeah, I think just the increase in the use of robotics and how those are starting to change in, logistics and warehousing, and then even in, small features of what you can do inside of a building and how robots can now move and go around and grab things and carry them from where we were, 5 years ago in robotics. It's been a big change in that space. So, and those have impacts for all of us.
And is that something like a UPS is trying out there and that sort of thing?
Yeah, UPS, we've got a company from France we're getting ready to work with called Enchanted Tools. And then you've got some other, security robotics. And then our company from Germany in the warehousing automation space. So our international presence has grown quite a bit as well. So out of our 170 companies, 73 of them have been from the international market.
And were you their first stop in the US?
Most of them we were, yeah.
Yeah,
So about
that's fascinating.
90% of them, yeah.
Gosh, I used to work up in New York, and that was, the fresh new
Yeah,
stuff, particularly come from Europe and Asia, and now they're moving to other places, more
yeah,
quality of life, and yeah, it's interesting. Okay, well, I don't want to keep you too long, but again, I think maybe later this year or next year we want to make another stop with the
yeah,
tour. It's definitely been one of the most interesting. We've stopped at T-Mobile's briefing center in Bellevue, which was
yeah,
interesting, but your place had that a way, less corporate feel. And you can
yeah.
just with Tiana, you could really learn what they can do, but then see it in a more relaxed, innovative way. I appreciated that. But from the future, you talked about some of these technologies. What's next? I mean, you're opening a new building. Well, let me ask you this. You collaborate with other cities, and I know you have a network of smart city alliance, or
Yeah.
can you talk about that? Because that fascinated me when I saw you guys in action at a couple of events.
Yeah. We are all in this together. We all compete for business from an economic development standpoint, but in the end, all of this is for all of our communities to thrive and be better. So work very closely with the North Texas Innovation Alliance, Jen Sanders and Frisco and McKinney, all, the incredible work they're doing. Tyler Svitek in Colorado and the Colorado Smart Cities Alliance, what Michael Pegas is doing up in Aurora, and then Nicole and Cary, North Carolina, and then the whole group in Arizona with Dom and all of them. So we all share and talk in these circles and help. They send me stuff that I learn a ton from. They learn, and then I'll send them over some crazy ideas that we're cooking up. So yeah, it is a very awesome open ecosystem of cities that we can really bounce ideas off, share technology, share learnings. Couldn't be more honored to be a part of that group.
So you mentioned Dom, and he went from sort of government innovation and funding, and now he's in digital equity with
Yeah,
sleeves rolled up and getting people online and all sort of thing.
yeah,
Fascinating how his went. But yeah, you mentioned a few people that we've shot a couple of Zooms with and haven't released yet. So we're looking forward to that. But again, it really is a pleasure to have you join us today and learn more about what Peachtree Corner is doing and Corners. And as I said, making a soft pitch, but maybe later this year or early next, we'll make a visit sometime when it's warm in Georgia. I'm
yes.
still down in Florida, and as you were giving that example about the pedestrians, we have the worst car to person relationship here in Orlando and with the tourism, and that's been a chronic issue for them, and they try to get their arms around it. So maybe I'll follow up and see if I can appear to be the smart guy locally when I learn what you're doing up there.
Yes, and would love to host you again.
All right. Well, appreciate that, and you take care.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye bye.